What's up, reality students? So excited that you guys are here with us this week. We are in our first week of a new series called Upstream, and we're going to be taking a look at Paul's life. Now, few things. Make sure to keep up with our Instagram. We're going to be posting some things this next week that you can get involved with. Also, we want to feature you guys. So if there's something that you guys love to do, if that's making music, if that's maybe you play video games and you stream while you play, or maybe you dance or do how-to videos, whatever they are, we want to feature you guys on our YouTube channel. So if that's you, if you want to get featured, we'd love to put you on there. So send us your stuff and we'll feature you guys. I hope you guys are having a great week. This time can get a little discouraging, especially with us being social distance. So we ask that you guys get engaged with what we're doing on Instagram and what we're doing on YouTube and everything, and keep up with your small groups, all right? So here Jake is for our first week of Upstream.
What's up, reality students? I hope you guys are doing well, staying safe, staying not too bored. I got to tell you guys, this past week, it just kind of hit me. I am so bored. So if you guys aren't doing anything, you got a PS4, put your gamer tag in our DM on Instagram, and maybe we can play Fortnite or something, because that's basically all I've been doing. So go ahead and do that. But what's up, guys? My name is Jake. I'm one of the youth pastors here at Reality Church. So glad you guys are joining us online. I know that this is not ideal, but man, hopefully we can be meeting in person before we know it, and just hang in there. We're getting through it. So as Jordy was saying, we're starting a new series this week called Upstream. And basically we're going to be taking a look at a guy that we all know. His name is Paul. And just kind of looking at his life, maybe from a fresh perspective. But before we get into that, I just want to share with you guys a little bit about me. And probably most of you know some of this stuff. But when I was in high school, so around some of your guys' age, I was a totally different person. And honestly, when I look back on that time of my life, I was kind of a bully to people in my high school. I was definitely somebody who would have been called a druggie. You smoked marijuana and all sorts of stuff. Well known for that in my high school. And I was honestly just somebody who just kind of did whatever I wanted. I would lie to you if it made my agenda come true. I would do whatever it took really to get what I wanted. That's just the type of person I was. I didn't really care about anybody other than myself. And it gave me this reputation of somebody that couldn't be trusted, somebody that maybe would con you if it got them what they wanted. And big picture, if you were to ask anybody I went to high school with, they would tell you, yeah, that kid, he's probably just a little bit too far gone. Like, I don't really think he could ever be saved. If there's a God, that kid's a little bit out of reach for him. There's no way that God could ever do anything with him. And honestly, I felt it too, because I didn't care about faith. I had no interest. I super don't care. That was me in high school. It was going to take a big God to turn my life around. And I share that because I wonder if maybe some of you are in the same spot, or maybe you have been before, where you just feel like if there is a God out there, it's going to take a whole lot for him to forgive me. In fact, he never could. I'm too dirty, too messed up, too broken. I'm too far gone. Or maybe you've never felt like you're there, but you know somebody from your school who is there, or maybe somebody in your family who you're like, man, yeah, I know that God is big, that God forgives a lot, but he could never forgive that person. You know who I'm talking about? You ever feel that way before? And I wonder today, what if that too far gone, that idea that somebody could possibly be too far gone for Jesus, what if that's a myth? Like, can God do anything with even the worst person that you know? With even you? Can God take horrible people, sinful people, and make something special out of them? That's the question for today. And as I kind of hinted at earlier, we're going to be talking about a guy named Paul, who we've all probably heard of. He wrote half of our New Testament. Like Paul is a huge figure in our faith. But what you might not know is that before he was Paul started off as this guy named Saul of Tarsus. He was a Jewish man, a very proud Jewish man. He went to the best schools, learned from the best rabbis, was just like top-notch Jewish guy. Followed the law like to its letter. And in the world of first century Jews, Saul had all of it. He had everything. There was nothing that he was lacking. But to the Christians in the first century, Saul was public enemy number one. The worst of the worst. He was feared. He was somebody you stayed away from. He was somebody that if Saul's life was going to change, it was going to take a really, really big God. And so I want to kind of look at a couple, really only 3 verses today, and just kind of see what we can learn about Saul before he met Jesus, and kind of see what that teaches us about people that maybe we think are too far gone. So here we go. The first one is Acts chapter 8, starting in verse 1. Or it's really just verse 1. Saul was one of the witnesses, and he agreed completely with the killing of Stephen. So this is coming right on the heels of there's this guy in the first century church. He was a leader in the church, a preacher in the church. His name was Stephen. And Stephen goes before the great Sanhedrin, this big council. It's basically a Jewish legal council. And he gets up and preaches Jesus to these people who do not believe in Jesus. In fact, want to stop the whole church movement thing. He gets up and preaches about Jesus to them, but not just that. He basically accuses them of killing Jesus. And so the council ends up having Stephen killed. And what we find in this verse is that Saul was one of the witnesses, and he agreed completely with the killing of Stephen. In fact, I think if we read that whole story, what we find is that Saul is actually the one holding the coats of the men who killed Stephen. And it kind of paints him in this picture, not just as somebody who agrees, but as kind of like a ringleader in this. Like he's kind of stirring up the people to kill Stephen. And from there, from that point, we kind of see this big after effect of like the church is kind of getting scattered. And Saul goes on this mission to destroy the church. And we see this in Acts chapter 9, verses 1 and 2. This is what it says. Meanwhile, Saul was uttering threats with every breath and was eager to kill the Lord's followers. So he went to the high priest. He requested letters addressed to the synagogues in Damascus, asking for their cooperation in the arrest of any followers of the way, so any Christians, basically, that he found there. He wanted to bring them, both men and women, back to Jerusalem in chains. So this is Saul, right? This is a guy who, in his mind, this the way is what they called it at the time, but really it's the church that we are a part of. In his mind, this is a threat to everything that he knows and loves, and it has to be stopped. And so he is described as somebody who is uttering threats with every breath and is eager to kill. I don't know about you guys, but if somebody's described as uttering threats and eager to kill, that is somebody I am staying far, far away from. And his mission is to go and bring Christians and put them in jail or kill them. Doesn't really seem like he cares. That's Saul. This is him, right? If there's anybody who is possibly too far gone, who could not be reached by Jesus, wouldn't it be Saul, the person who's actively working against the mission that Jesus has his followers on? That's who he is. To the believers in that day, Saul is unreachable. He's public enemy number one. There's no way Saul would ever start following Jesus. He was beyond just lost. He was actively working against the mission to break down barriers between people and Jesus. It would take a big God to save Saul. And yet, we have the benefit of hindsight, and we know that not only did God save Saul, but Saul went on to become the Apostle Paul, write half of our New Testament, plant tons of churches, and become really one of the key figures in our faith. And really, it's one of those things where it's like, before Jesus, Saul was proud, set in his ways, hateful, murderous. He's the exact type of person that it would be easy to believe couldn't be saved. But yet, he was. And we could get into we will get into how that happened next week. Tune in for more of his story next week. But the thing I want to focus on here, what I think this illustrates is that with Jesus, we are never too far gone. I'll say it again. With Jesus, we are never too far gone. If there's nothing that Paul did that put him beyond being saved when he was working against the church, working to destroy what Jesus was building, if even that guy could be used by God in major ways, then there's nothing that we could do, or nothing the worst person that we know could do either. When it comes to our Savior, nobody is off limits. Nobody is too far gone. There's nobody who is beyond saving. Our God's grace and his forgiveness is bigger than any of our past sins, any sins that we're committing or stuck in right now, or any sins that we're going to do in the future. He is bigger than all of that. And nobody is too far gone. So what do we do with that? Why is that an important thing to know? Well, the thing is that probably there's two different types of people watching this. I want to talk to the first one, and that's the people who you're kind of like, man, if anybody is too far gone, it's probably me. If that's you, well, there's not really going to be anything I can say or do that's going to convince you to follow Jesus, but I am going to say this. Would you be open? Would you be open to the fact that maybe God is interested in you? Maybe he does love you. Maybe he could forgive you and do something with you, and he wants to. Would you be open to that? Would you maybe just keep tuning into these videos? Would you keep being involved in small group stuff? Would you ask questions? Would you maybe even talk to God in prayer? God, I don't even know if you care, but here I am. Here's what I'm thinking. Would you just be open and watch as God works in your heart and does things that you didn't even know he could do? I'm not saying give your life to him. I'm just saying be open to him. And if you can just do that one thing, you're already ahead of where Saul was in this story. But I get that most of us watching this, we're probably not that person, but we probably know somebody who's like, I don't know if they would ever be open to faith. So what do you do with that? How do you reach even that person for Jesus? And I just want to give you two things real quick. And the first thing is love well. Love well. There isn't anything in the world that is more attractive than people who love other people well. I remember when I was in high school, there was no argument that you were going to tell me that I couldn't fight back against. No words were going to win me to Jesus. Maybe you could convince me to come to church every now and then. But the people that I remember are not the people that try to convince me that I was wrong. They're the people who loved me well. And there was a couple of them who, anytime I needed anything, they were there. Anytime I needed things as simple as a ride or just somebody to talk to, they were there. They loved me, not for who they thought I might become someday, but for who I was. They didn't judge me for the things I did. They loved me for who I was. And that stuck out to me. Like, I still remember them for that today. And so maybe nothing comes of it, but guys, is there somebody in your school, somebody you know, maybe a family member, who you don't think could ever be saved? Would you love them well? Would you practice just showing them the love of Jesus? Because just that, it makes a difference. It sticks out to people. Love people well. That's what we're called to do anyways. That's part of following Jesus and following his example, is loving people the way that he did. And then the other thing is pray for people. Pray for them. You have that person in your mind, would you pray for them? And the thing is, guys, is that's going to take forever. Like for me, it took 5 years. But when you love people well and you pray for them, guys, God blesses that, and he does a work that, honestly, it blows our mind. We have no idea what he wants to do with that person. So would we love them well and pray for them? That's our role in this whole thing. When we think about breaking down barriers, I know it's kind of a crazy time right now with coronavirus and we're all stuck inside, but our mission is still to break down barriers between people and Jesus. And sure, it looks a little bit different now, but guys, there are people in our world right now, and in times of crisis, they're more open to hearing the gospel. But honestly, nothing that we say is going to matter if we don't love them well and we don't pray for them. So guys, would you practice that? Who are the people in your school and the people in your life, people in your family who you need to be practicing loving well and praying for? Would you go do that? And would we just be these people who break down barriers between others and Jesus? Let me pray for us. God, I'm thankful for our students. I'm thankful for just the way that you have redeemed us. God, I pray that you would help us to, even in the midst of crisis, be people who break down barriers between others and your Son, Jesus. We love you for all that you've done for us. God, we can never repay you for that. Just be with us. Help us to get through this. Help us to stay safe and healthy, and give us things to do, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.